Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Audit and Resources Committee. My name is Cllr Steve Holes and I am chair of this committee and will be conducting the meeting tonight. This meeting will be video recorded and will be updated on the Council's website. More information is available on the Council's website. And I'd just like to say that we have representatives from EY, our external auditors, online, and they're on the screen. And that's Simon Mathers and Janet Dawson. They'll be talking later. Okay, moving on to item 1, which is apologies, and we have a number due to colds and flu, etc. Could you just confirm who we have?
Yeah, we've got councillors Bourne, Irish, Park, Beer, Baker and Attrell.
Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have anything they wish to raise that they have an interest in? If anything comes up during the meeting, please declare in the normal way. Moving on to item 3, which is the minutes of the last meeting. Can I have a proposer and seconder? Proposed Cllr Pretty, seconded Cllr Hadaway. Any discussion? Any comments? Joe, you wish?
Give an update on the whistleblowing.
Yes,
thank you. Last time. So you'll recall that Protect, the whistleblowing charity, reached out and gave us access to a whistleblowing scanner. I've done that report. I've worked through it. It looks at areas of governance, engagement and operations. There's some work coming from this around the engagement, and just to summarise, they're suggesting it's some really useful comments around how we can engage with staff, communicate the new policy to them, how we can encourage the culture across the organisation. So I can summarise it for the committee in an email if comfortable, but just to reassure you that I have done that, got the feedback, and I'm going to action the recommendations that have arisen from it.
Could you just forward that to members of the committee? Thank you. Thank you for that. Any questions? Jen, Cllr Tidridge.
A question on paragraph 296 of the minutes. They are on our work programme. I asked if the committee could have regular updates on Holden's finances. It doesn't seem to be on the agenda tonight.
That was a conversation with an action that Sarah was going to take away.
Yes, it was.
It wouldn't be tonight anyway, so it would be, I know it was agreed it would be in line with the cabinet reporting.
We have regular updates.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened since November.
December was the last one.
3 months ago.
Yeah. So they would only be quarterly in line with the performance anyway. So the next one is June.
Yeah. So 6 months, over 6 months after when we originally asked for regular updates.
It's only 3, but
Well, June, November to June, that's 7 months, isn't it?
Late December.
yes, so that's what I mean. So they're quarterly. So the next one's due now, since December to March. The next one will be due. It's done. We've agreed, and Sarah highlighted it will be done in line with each time that the programme is reported in line with cabinet.
It just feels that we ask for regular updates, and to me, once every 6 months doesn't really feel like a regular update. Maybe that's just me.
Yes,
It's obviously something that I brought up originally at the meeting, and part of it was because when we wait so long, the amount of information is quite a lot.
Yes.
And quite a lot to cope with. So if we could find a way to have it spread that out a little bit, to make it easier for us to understand at each meeting. That's my comment. That's right.
can we take that back to Sarah? Yes, Cllr Tennent.
Perhaps we could have an intermediate briefing via email to get the proper report in June.
Yes.
If I may, Chair, Andy will correct me if I'm wrong. I think Andy said the next report was due, not June. I think
That's right. Yes, I didn't say June.
Due, D-U-E.
No, sorry. Oh, right. Sorry. Right. Okay.
It sounds very similar, but late December was the last update. So it is due, and we will take the action now of ensuring that it's not too far away.
Thank you.
Chair, do you mind if we move forward? Because we're also having difficulty hearing.
Please
Is
do.
that okay?
Yeah.
Just move our chairs
You can
forward.
come and sit in the end chairs if you like. Yeah.
Okay, well, that'd be great. Thank you.
Can I just check, Simon, Janet, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yes, can hear you, Chair.
Mhm.
Yes. Please say if you can't hear us.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can I have a vote on that? All in favour? With the notations and any against and any abstentions? Good, excellent. Item 4, public participation. No public participation. Item 5 is the update on staffing matters, and Suki, that's you, please.
Chair. I'm Suki, Head of HR. I've also circulated the report, which covers the summary of the workforce data and analysis over the last 12 months for the period of 1st of January to 31st of December 2023. Key workforce data around really staff turnover and any trends within kind of equality, inclusion, diversity, and a number of other areas in terms of statistics as well. I think the most important thing to note is a couple of kind of challenges that we faced last year due to the economic climate. We had an impact in terms of really resilience within the organisation, but also in terms of the work that we had to fulfil in terms of we had to do a large restructure, organisation-wide restructure, and various other restructures to kind of meet forward capacity. However, despite the pressures, we've tried to keep staff morale going. We've continued to work in a hybrid manner, and we have positively launched in April last year a 3-year people strategy with a very ambitious action plan, which focuses on key themes around recruit, reward, retain, and ultimately becoming a resilient workforce. And our main focus is around building a culture of continuous learning, development for staff, and being an employer of choice. And there's many ways, if you have been through the people strategy and the action plan, that we aspire to do this through having a clear pay progression scheme, management, development, and supporting staff, and also other key factor we'll be focusing on is well-being of staff as well. So hopefully you've all had opportunity to read through the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Okay, Cllr Hadaway.
Just a quick question on points 9 and 10 on the turnover staff. I noticed that the voluntary turnover from 23 to 22 was actually very close, probably only like 4 people different, so not much difference there. But there was a comment that mentions that the average service of the voluntary leavers was 5.75 years, which sounds like quite good experienced members of staff, but I don't know how that compares with previous years. I suppose my concern is, are we losing some experienced staff here, or?
We are losing some experienced staff. I think generally the trends have found that it's quite difficult to recruit for a skilled workforce currently. That seems to be the area that we struggle with. I mean, losing skilled staff isn't always a negative thing. I think it kind of demonstrates as an employer we are offering and developing our staff and investing in them, and therefore allowing them to progress further within their career. So there's an element where we would develop them as far as we can internally. Unfortunately, if there's not a vacancy to progress, then it's quite difficult. In terms of the comparison with last year, I can't remember, so I can come back to you on that.
Thank you very much. Cllr Pretty.
Yeah, much the same line as my colleague here.
having sat or experienced restructuring of staff this year or last year and the previous restructuring under the previous CEO, I'm concerned that do we have sufficient staff with the right skills to be able to undertake the work that we currently have to undertake, bearing in mind that reading in the paper that central government are proposing that consultancy should be reduced, that things like the short-term rental list are going to be passed down to local authorities to keep a register of, which I believe is supposed to come under planning and that department. Have we got sufficient staff to be able to cope with the demands now and in the future?
Well, we certainly have structured in the way that we hope that we are delivering our services. There are certain particular areas where we have struggled to recruit, for instance, in assets. As you're probably aware, we've got quite a lot of vacancies within that area. Again, we're not alone in attracting staff within those areas. That is kind of quite widespread. However, we are coping by putting in interim arrangements and then reviewing exactly what we need. In terms of really, from my perspective, yes, we have staff and we're fulfilling and we're meeting service needs. However, we have recently launched a staff survey, which is the second week in, and we hope to really gather staff's feedback, and we will see what the outcome of that is. So I suppose watch this space.
Yeah, appreciate what you're saying, and I was aware that asset management particularly was bad. I also heard legal was a little bit tight. I understand that because in my role with Hedge End Town Council, chair of the finance committee there, I've been trying to get land transferred to the town council for a long time. The answer we get back when we query it is shortage of staff. So I just really wanted to make sure that we are aware of it, that the senior team are looking at it in order to address it.
I think I can say quite positively, if concerns are raised or aired, we will review structures, and we are continually looking at resources and structures and amending. Even though we've gone through restructuring, that doesn't mean that is the ultimate end point. If we need to add in additional resources or better ways of doing things, then we will certainly look at opportunities. We obviously are trying to, again, through the ethos of the people strategy, growing our own and developing staff. So we're looking at innovative ways of career development in place, so that we can have full, resource to fulfill the needs.
One last one, promise. When the was on the cabinet last year, we were assured that the restructuring, although staff are leaving, the existing staff would not have an additional workload put on their shoulders. Is that the case, or have we had to ask staff to work longer hours, harder, take on more roles to cover that reduction in staff?
We certainly, as part of when we did restructure, as part of our consultation documents and working with the unions, we did express areas that we would stop doing, or how that particular work would be amalgamated amongst different teams or spread out to make it fair. So I don't have that document with me, I'm afraid, but we do have a document where we did list, and and this was a question was asked by the unions as well, where we did highlight what we would stop doing going forward, and there were some areas that we did stop doing to ensure that we could.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got James who wishes, a chief executive who wishes to come.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Just wanted to give my perspective, if that's all right. The senior team and I are very focused on what you've asked about. You've seen in the report that the full complement of the council is 500 staff. We're never at 500 staff because of vacancies sickness, all sorts of reasons. And then we have choices about whether do we bring some interim cover in, do we just live with it for a while because we know they're coming back in a month. If it's a long-term sickness, you know, should we recruit, you know, on a short-term contract to fill it? So that there's a constant churn, and so the result is we're never at 500, and 500 is what is needed to deliver the services that we've committed to you. We don't carry fat anymore in the way that we would have done years ago. So I am concerned that staff in some areas particularly will feel overworked. What is required is for management and councillors to be understanding of that and to accept that instead of taking 3 days to do something, it may take 5 days to do something, or that a project may have to be paused for a period of time. And that is an ever-shifting picture because service recruitment is always moving around. A couple of years ago, I think we had quite a lot of difficulty attracting planning colleagues. Planning is fully staffed now, which is great, but we have other areas, and you've mentioned a couple of them, that are not so great. This is going to become even more of an issue as we look at the future budget savings that are required, because the one thing that we mustn't do is be unfair to staff and say, well, we're going to take 2% of the staff out, but we're not going to take 2% of the work off. I think you'll hear from Karen a little bit later on that she feels the public expect too much of some of our staff in that respect.
Okay, I've got Jen and then Chris.
Thank you. Really following on from Councillor Pretty's observations on the restructure, given that 21 in the short-term reasons for leaving is the second highest number within that table, would it not be possible for future reports to separate out the number who have left due to restructure? I think that would be a helpful number to be able to see. And it would be nice to be able to see that separately, I think, just to because it is obviously an area of concern, and I think it's something that would be good to kind of sift out from that 21 tables we specified it.
22 staff left due to be made redundant.
Right.
Sorry.
So I was looking at paragraph 17.
Okay. Okay, so a breakdown of so they
it's not redundancy, is it?
No, so they would be accounted for in the involuntary leavers. Yeah. So they are not part of the.
So is it possible somewhere within the future documents to show the total restructure impact? Because whenever there's a restructure, you'll get some people made redundant, some people who end up leaving without necessarily redundancy. So I think it would be good to maybe see something so that it's easier to see within the report what the overall impact is of the restructure. With any organisation reorganise, you get some people who leave very, very soon. As part of a redundancy process, but then there'll be other people who leave because it just doesn't work for them anymore because of that restructure. So that would be useful to see.
To be fair, those kind of fit in the other category, 21, because some people did leave through the, and that we learned that information through the exit interviews because of the changes posed, and they didn't feel it was the right place for them to be. Or they've made a decision to move on because there will be a change of management as well. So they kind of fit as part of the budget. There's only so many categories that employees can tick, but we then do a further analysis by having one-to-one interviews with them to understand things. But yeah, we can break.
Thank you. My second question is about apprenticeships. I'm really glad to see that the council makes use of apprenticeships. It's a fantastic way of enabling people to go into a job and get the training that they need to develop into it. That's really good to see. I think we're concerned though, just reading that it's national living wage that's been paid. I just want a bit of reassurance that we're not basically treating this as a source of comparatively as a way of cost cutting, like I say, as opposed to development.
Sorry, we pay the living wage, so it's the national living wage.
Which you would expect to have a lot more if you were working as a solicitor or working as an environmental practitioner, for example. So is there variation within those apprenticeships as to how much somebody is paid?
So any apprenticeship joining would be paid the living wage rate, but we also utilise the apprenticeship levy through internal staff as well. So we also, in terms of developing staff, we use it, but they will ready to retain their current salary.
Great, thank you. I was just a bit worried that seems like quite a low salary first. But yeah.
No, if it's internal, they retain.
Okay, thank you for that, Jim. And Bruce.
Well, Jean has just asked one of the questions I was going to ask because I looked at the is it 17 and saw 21 in other. And I thought, well, surely other isn't wide enough. It's not capturing, it's not giving us what those 21 are. It would be very nice to have a breakdown of that. I was looking at paragraph 40 something about stress, 42, 41. Because when I was reading it, it concerned me quite a lot because I could understand why people would be stressed with the situation that we have in the country, which reflects down to local authorities. And when I read further on, it said that actually the stress wasn't necessarily internal. It was to do with cost of living and other things, which sort of makes sense. But it really does highlight that we've got to do the best that we can for our staff.
Yeah.
One of the things that I am interested in this year that we suffered with the public. Many of the things a number of the things that councils do aren't seen so easily by the public. But catching bins, that's one of them, and the other is grass cutting, verges and stuff. It's got more complicated recently because of the license agreement that we had with the county. We don't have any longer, but last year there was a shortage of staff in that area, direct services streets, and I just wondered whether we're on top of that for this year when the sun starts shining again and the grass starts growing again.
Well, we certainly have done a huge restructure within neighbourhoods and these spaces and brought some teams together to provide that kind of resilience. So I can't tell you specifically where we are with the recruitment of vacancies, but I believe we're kind of keeping on top and we're attracting staff to fill our vacancies. But I couldn't tell you at the moment, I'm afraid, how many vacancies we have within neighbourhoods. I can certainly come back to you.
Yeah, it's really important for councillors because we're at the coalface, and it's those sorts of things that we get contacted about the most, the highly visible things. And what we as councillors are doing with residents is trying to, through what we learn from these sorts of committees, is we're informing the public about the situation nationally and how councils, local authorities have been underfunded since 2010, and I think many of them realise that now. But there are still some that expect more from councils because they don't understand that a lot of our funding should come from government, but it's not enough.
Just come back on that. With regards to the grass cutting, there is a comms plan this year to make the residents more aware of schedules of grass cutting. I think last year with the rain, from recollection, it did create an increase in number of cases coming through into customer services. I think the number that I heard recently was about 500 additional cases were received with queries. Let's try and manage that this year. There is a comms plan that the team are working on.
Thanks for that. It's really important.
I mean, on those two areas that you've raised, Bruce, first of all, I was talking to James earlier today, and when I became a councillor in 1995, stress wasn't even a reason for having time off work. It didn't exist as far as most workplaces were concerned. Unfortunately, as you quite rightly pointed out, with the current state of the country and the pressures on families, etc., stress can come in all forms. It's not just about internal stress. If it was, we'd be very, very concerned to tackle that. And I think our people strategy actually picks it up. And I think that document itself is actually really good. And it's a great framework to work from, picking up on all the different areas that we have concerns over. Such things like hybrid working, which is taken off since COVID. I remember when it first came in, people weren't sure about it and whether it could actually work in the council. But of course, COVID made it happen, and most companies in the private sector, most businesses now have some sort of flexible working, and I think that needs to be managed like all of these things, and the people strategy sets out a clear direction, and that's really encouraging. The other thing I wanted to mention was the grass cutting. In Burswoodland this year, we actually had our first grass cut in January, which is unheard of. It's now been raining so much that they can't cut it, but we had our first cut in January, and I was very impressed. We didn't even have to ask for it. So I think it's about managing that as well, and Joe's indicated that they're really trying to be on top of it this year, because if we can stay on top of it and reduce the number of complaints and concerns, then that helps everybody. It reduces stress. So yeah, good point.
One of the things I didn't mention, only because I couldn't about it, but I meant to mention, is the fact that we've got a full gamut of parish councils in Eastleigh now, and I just wondered if we don't have we been speaking to the parish councils about sharing resources if they've got resources when we're low on resources. They've got groundskeeping equipment, whether they can help.
James.
That is a pretty constant conversation with the parishes. Some are more interested than others, shall we say, and don't necessarily see the benefit for them in either taking on some of our work or the other way around. But I think it's got to be a bigger part of the future, because I suppose my biggest concern in all of these areas is the resilience of the teams. We've got great people, but if you need 10 and you've only got 8, it doesn't add up.
Because lots of people now are talking about value for money. And then when people look at all the parish councils, each working individually, then the borough council also working individually, it doesn't make 100% sense.
I accept that point, and I think that applies regionally as well. We have shared services in a number of areas with councils, including Southampton and others, and I think that's overwhelmingly likely to be more of a feature in future, so that you don't necessarily have 100% building control coverage across all councils, but you've got enough in the region.
There's also an opportunity for cross parish work as well, sharing services between parishes.
I'd like to see that more. And I think that one of the things that locally, we've got the utility board, and in the past they've actually offered to help with groundskeeping. So it's another thing that we could perhaps look at is places like that we can trust, quality companies.
Yeah, sure. Are there any other questions? I've got a couple which haven't been picked up, so if I may, we all realise that it's difficult at the moment to employ staff. The options for people looking for work are quite open and varied. There's a lot of job vacancies across the local authority industry, and people have a choice, and they can then they have a further choice because they can go into private practice or whatever. And we realise that, and it's all about trying to get the balance and communication with our staff, and try and keep them on side, try and keep them happy, work with them, deal with issues as they come up, try and deal with the stress factor and the fact that they sometimes get a lot of abuse from individuals out in the public, as we do as members, and you just have to sometimes bite the bullet and say, look, I can't deal with this at the moment, and walk away. And that's hard for staff. They're not employed to take that sort of criticism when they're doing their job. And I have a suspicion it might come up in a minute, actually, in the next report. But there is an important balance there, and the people strategy goes a long way towards directing us down that path, and that's to be encouraged. But the first question I have is, I was looking at the age profile, and it concerns me slightly that around 25% of our staff are currently 55 or over. And I'm concerned because of the succession planning. There's a paragraph in the report about succession planning, but that to me isn't enough. I'd like to see more meat on the bone about how we deal with succession planning, particularly as our employees get to that age where they're starting to think about retirement, sort of mid-50s. I know I did. And trying to work out when they can take that jump. And there's a lot of outside influences on that. But I think we need to be very aware that part of this process of trying to deliver our services in an effective manner is about succession planning, and how we plan that in the future and how we prepare for it. Because, you know, to be honest, one paragraph isn't detailed enough, and I would really like to see more information on that and more thought going into that, and maybe that's something we can take away and work on. Sorry I didn't raise it earlier, Suki, I surprised you with it, but it just concerned me when I was reading it today that actually there's a hole here, potential hole. If suddenly we get people taking early retirement, people have illnesses, which means that they can no longer do physical work. All of these sorts of things can come into play, and we really need to do I think a little bit more work on succession planning and how we prepare ourselves going forward.
Thank you for that. So yeah, that is part of the people strategy. There is already a group set up in terms of CLB, HR, and learning advisor. So you're in the early stages of developing kind of a skills gap analysis, but also then focusing on a process of succession planning, identifying individuals and really progressing those individuals and making sure that we are planning for an aging workforce. So we are fully aware of that. Yeah. And I said that it's kind of this part of it is early stages, which is why it's only a paragraph. I'm hoping by next year we can bring some more information.
That would be very welcome, because we'd like to see some progress, I think. James.
Just to follow up, that is very important to us. Also just worth the committee being aware that this is a completely normal and typical age profile for a local authority.
Yeah.
We're not at all unusual. In fact, there are some that have an older age profile.
It's also very familiar in industry, blue collar industry. I know where I worked in manufacturing and engineering, and I would say 75% of the staff were over 50, because they're not getting the youngsters coming in. And if it's of concern here in public authorities, imagine what that message is sending to our private industry. If they're not getting the youngsters in, then succession planning is very, very difficult, because you're getting a reducing pool of experience if you're not training up. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of big questions in that area, private industry, coming up in the near future. Jin.
Just a quick addition to that, though, I think it's really important that we do support a wide age profile of employees. I think we've moved away from the scenario where you consider your working life over at 55. We know that we all have to work a lot longer. I guess the flip side is a lot of us enjoy good health for a lot longer, we're able to do so. So I think it's really good that the council supports people of all ages to develop. Completely get Councillor Holes' point on succession planning, really important, but at the same time, it's also really good to see older people being employed.
It's a tricky one. The other question I've got, and it's an observation which I picked up on, and I'm not sure of the answer, so bear with me on it, and I will try and be careful how I phrase this. On the responses on ethnicity, we had a 43.4% no data on sexual orientation, etc. It was something similar. I wouldn't want to think that people were dissuaded from being themselves and being open and honest. It shouldn't affect them. It certainly doesn't here. And it just concerns me that people are still reluctant to admit that they come from a certain place or they have a certain orientation sexually or what. It shouldn't be an issue. And that is a large portion of that you're not getting information from. And we want to be inclusive. And to me, I think possibly a little bit more work on trying to encourage people to feel part of what we're doing here. Would that be a fair assumption?
That's a fair assumption, yeah. I mean, we did an exercise last year, the year before, where we encouraged staff to complete, and obviously we had a lot of people leaving, and therefore those figures have kind of dropped. So it's part of the plan to kind of encourage staff to update the details. They can go in and update them themselves. So it's
people should be proud of who they are, shouldn't they? They shouldn't be afraid to be themselves. Yeah. That's the point I'm making.
Be, inclusive. Of course, there are various groups. We have our LGBT group with a new member in that. We're looking at things like adding pronouns into email signatures, which we presented to CLB shortly. We've got a qualities focus group, which kind of looks at equalities and how we can become more inclusive in innovative ways. But yeah, so we are trying our best. But the demographics within kind of the borough don't help.
No, I just felt that they made really interesting reading, those graphs. And there was actually quite a lot of information that we could glean from it, but it would be lovely to have more information, because that sort of information would be helpful in planning going forward. And the last one was disability. We're still quite low on employees with disabilities. And I don't know how we deal with that, because if people aren't applying for jobs.
It's a difficult. It has actually reduced from last year.
Yeah.
So we are a disability employer. We've got we're a disability competent employer. Sorry, we encourage. So if anybody does apply, they meet the minimum criteria. We guarantee an interview. So we definitely push that.
The door is open, isn't it? It's just that it's a very low figure, and it doesn't portray society, I guess, but it's something that hopefully people will pick up on and think, I could get involved in local government despite my disability, whatever that is, and that's to be encouraged, and the people strategy picks that up as well. It's an excellent document. Okay, have I got anything else from members? It's quite a lot to take back, I think. That's a good thing. And thank you for your excellent report. Can I have a proposal and seconder that we note it with all the observations involved? Proposed Cllr Tennent, seconded Cllr Pretty. All in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Excellent. And now I'm really pleased to say that we've got Karen Springham here from Unison. Every year when we do the staff report, we invite the unions, and over the years they've had problems with representatives, etc., and not being able to attend or whatever. But you are always welcome to our meetings. It's really important part of what we do, and you have a report which I think has been circulated. So, yes. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So our membership is currently about 32% of staff. We had a massive increase last year. A lot of people joined during the restructure and after the restructure. So I think our membership went up by almost 10%, which is good for us. We do have a really good relationship with management and HR. We're the door's always open. If we have any issues, we can go straight to them. And hopefully that continues. James has been absolutely brilliant with JCC and decision making, can literally talk to them about anything. So we're really pleased about that. Now, it's been a really difficult time for staff. There's no getting away from that. The restructure is awful. It's awful for everybody. Had hoped that once the restructure was completed, things would settle down and we'd be in a lot better position. But it doesn't seem to have landed the way we thought it would. Staff are still saying they're short-staffed in their area, they've got more work than they can handle, and they can't recruit. So when we've spoken to them about what the issues are, I think the problem is it's not unique to Eastleigh. I will say that. I think the problem is nationally within local government. It's not the place to work that it was 10 years ago. People are shying away from getting a job in local government. Negative press doesn't help. We're on the front line of people's anger with the government. So we end up, you know, being the face of that and someone that they can have a go at. So that's not helping anything. I did talk about the best value notice and the negative press around that. And staff have told me it's not just them, it's their family and friends. Oh, you know, don't want to work there. They, you know, there's all sorts of rumours about fraud, all sorts that have come out. And we know how much of this is being used politically. However, I think the lack of response from the councillors is not helping. And I know sometimes it's difficult to, you know, where to pitch that, say nothing or go back. There's always going to be a wrong way. But I think the fact that nothing's been said is not helping. James told staff, yeah, we've got this best value notice. It's not ideal. This is what we're doing. This is what's happening. The complete lack of anything coming politically is not helping staff.
So what you're saying partly is that our communication internally needs to be stronger on that.
I think it's with the public. I think the public's perception of what's going on.
I think that is a political decision,
Agreed.
which we wouldn't discuss here.
No, absolutely.
But that, I mean, there is a strong viewpoint generally in politics that sometimes it's better to be quiet about something.
Yeah.
Rather than respond with knee-jerk reactions to
Agreed.
what others are doing,
Yes.
because one knee-jerk action doesn't make a second knee-jerk action.
No,
correct.
I completely understand. I can just
so
feedback on what they
sometimes,
say.
yes. I mean, a lot of work is being done. We've discussed it many times here, and you will see if you read our papers that we are working on all of that. But yes, I can understand that there are people that believe in the newspapers, unfortunately, and the newspapers are only interested in making headlines.
Great.
And it makes it very difficult. And that's not being political, that's the truth. They don't really care about the truth. They care about selling ever dwindling numbers of newspapers. Social media is another matter, unless it crashes like it has today. Social media is a problem because more and more people are becoming active on social media, and it's today's forum. It's the modern forum. Newspapers are old hat, but a few people, a small percentage, still read them. But their headlines can still hit hard. But yes, it's all being monitored, it's all being managed, and working towards solutions. So
I think it is going to have an impact on us and recruitment, because if we're not seen as a good place to work, you know, staff are telling me that friends and family wouldn't apply for a job at Eastleigh Borough Council because of the reputation. So how is that? Yeah. So how is that counted? And I think that's not just internally, that needs to be addressed.
I think James wants to just come in.
Well, I wanted to say, Chair, that I agree with Karen that there has been misrepresentation in the press, which has been very unfortunate. From the from the staff perspective, it's pretty simple, really. We've got an action plan that is being developed. We're meeting very regularly to discuss it. We've already taken a number of actions to address the concerns that have been raised, not just by Cllr and EY, who are on today's call, but also the Corporate Peer Challenge, such as the very quick appointment of independent members of this committee. That conversation will go on for a number of months because it's complicated, but we're making good progress. Government are happy with our engagement, and I think there's every reason to be confident that we're doing everything we can to get rid of the notice. It's not something that can be done overnight. I agree with Karen. It's bad for business. It's something I don't want around the necks of the organisation for a minute longer than we need to. So we are on the case.
And it is noted, and we do understand. It's a difficult one where you draw a line. It would be very easy for us to jump on with a response on everything that's said. Sometimes it's better to get your heads down and get on with the work that's required to be done. And the proof is in the pudding then when you come out the other side. Okay, are there any other questions on what Karen has said? A lot of it we've already discussed, like stress on workers, etc. So
I just wanted to say that I think that a lot of moves which we're pushing towards a committee and the council's moving towards, for example, transparency, better audit, the appointment of the independent auditors. And I know I'm annoying people going on about I want to see more numbers for all people regularly, but that's exactly what this falls into, is this idea of let's be open, let's be transparent, let's show people that we're operating well. And it's that common thread. It doesn't have to be a political them and us type thing or anything like that. Transparency is really important. Demonstrating that we're doing the things right is as important as actually doing them right. And I think that's what this council is starting to do more of, and that's really good.
And I think we need to, it will be passed on, I'm sure, but the communication between councillors, staff, and managers, etc., needs to be a full circle. That's really important. How we deal with the public is a separate issue. Bruce.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jin said, and I was going to say, but she's already said it, so I won't repeat. But reading Karen's report, there's a couple of words that hit me. One is stress and the other is communication. And I can completely understand the situation we're in is because of the situation. Country's in, it needs a better economy. It needs to be doing things it hasn't been doing for the last 14 years. And I'm finding even as a councillor, we're volunteers, so we get paid lots of money to do this. It's difficult to even get other people interested in being councillors. And that's awful. I mean, I've been on the Borough Council as a councillor since 2006, and I've seen enormous differences. I mean, back in the day when I joined, I was totally new because I don't think anyone ever rose up wanting to be a councillor. It was just you're asked, and somebody asks you, and you think, oh, maybe I wonder what that is, and that's probably the case for many people. Back in 2006, in those early years, the staff here had been here for a long time. It was easy for councillors to, as a novice councillor, to find out how things work because there were so many wise members of staff that could advise. Many of them took early retirement. Even your role, Mark, was doing that for many years. I knew it well. We discussed things, and it's changed. So it's really difficult. And I think Jin is hit on a very important thing about these, because with our two-party political system, I won't go into the politics of it, but it's just in this country, whatever one side is doing, the other side wants to oppose. And so they try to, no matter how good it is, they will want to oppose. Horton Heath is the new Rose Bowl. Back in the day with the Hilton Hotel and what have you, we're coming under a lot of criticism for that. And we countered it by giving information as much as we could. And I think when people say to me, people that I know well, that they've read stuff about us over borrowing, they're picking up on a wrong message. You know, we need to counter that with what's really happening. I know we do try. One of the problems is social media. As Jean and you said, that it is a negative, and it works on negative algorithms. And so people, if they want to believe something, they get sucked in believing it even more, you know, whether it's 5G telephone masts or whatever. So I'm not really asking a question, I suppose. I'm just agreeing with what others have said. And it's easy for me to say that we need to sharpen up on communication, but I have no idea how, because, you know, we've got the Borough News, which is how many people read it? I would like to think quite a lot. We could do the social media thing as well. I don't know. But one of the things definitely is, you know, when people are criticising us and saying that we're borrowing rather than investing, you know, we need to prove to them with the numbers what we're doing.
For another day. But yes, point picked up. Yeah. Any other comments, Derek?
Yeah, just one. I fully appreciate what you're saying about people's perception of the council. I think Bruce hit the nail on the head that there's so much this council does that is good for the community at large. We've built apartments, we've got the housing up in Bampton House, we've got country parks, all these things that are good for people, which would create that sense of well-being, but we're just not communicating it. And I think this is where we need to get the senior management to take it on board, get that message out that we may have a value for money notice, and I'm sure there are other authorities that have as well, because that's part of the system at the moment. It may be political, maybe not, maybe just good management. But we are doing such a lot of good things, and we're not saying, look at this. Haven't we done well? Wouldn't you like to be part of this team that's creating homes for people that can't afford homes, that are helping people that are disadvantaged at the moment, and we're helping them again. And we're not making that message across. So, you know, I do appreciate what you're saying, and I think we need the committee to stress to our management that this communication has to be stronger and more positive, and try and counteract that negative social media.
Yes, we need to send you back with a message that we, as councillors, value everybody that works for EPC. It's really important. Without you, we couldn't exist. That's quite clear, and from the youngest apprentice to the the cleaners. Everybody that works for EPC is valued. That's really important, and that comes out in our people strategy, as was mentioned earlier. But we want the message to get back to our staff that we're here. If they've got any doubts, then please put it to me, put it to the leader, and I know you've contacted the leader. That's really important, because it's about communication internally that then starts to drip out the message externally. And that is a slightly different issue, but maybe what we've got to do, and the message needs to go back to those that can deal with this, is that we need to help our staff deal with the outside communication issues. So yes, we pick up on that, but we want to say that we do value staff internally. They do a really good job, and we're very lucky to have all of them. And we couldn't do it without them. So you're doing a great job, and I'm delighted that you were able to come this evening and express your views, because it is important and we want to hear. Because we don't sit in an ivory tower. I've said this in years gone by, and my predecessor said the same thing. Councillor Phil Speary, when he was chair, but we don't sit in an ivory tower. We don't pretend not to listen or whatever. If there's an issue, we want to know about it. So that goes for everybody.
Thank you.
So please go back to your members and say, right, if we've got concerns, we can raise them. And that's really important. And I know you work with Suki very closely, and that's important.
Yeah.
As well.
Chair, if I may just add, as has been mentioned earlier, our staff survey is live now.
Yes.
And by the time of the next meeting, this committee, we should be in a position to give some analysis of the results. They obviously the data needs to be crunched a bit.
Yep. Sure.
Next time out, we'll be able to update them.
Excellent. Okay. Can I have a proposal and second that we note Karen's report? Bruce and Councillor Hadaway, thank you very much. All in favour? Noting the report. And those against, abstentions. Good. And that all those points will be picked up
Thank you very much.
and taken forward. Thank you very much. You're welcome to leave if you wish to.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Item 7 is the internal audit charter.
Hello, councillors.
Lisa?
The internal audit charter, it is based on the public sector internal audit standards, which require us to have a charter. The charter describes our purpose as a team, our authority and the responsibility of the internal audit activity. The charter's updated every year. We review it, update it. It's not actually changed very much from the last time it was presented to this committee. But I just wanted to let you all know there are new public sector internal audit standards which will come into force January next year. So there will be a comprehensive review of it to ensure that our charter stays in line with the requirements of the public sector internal audit standards. And as soon as they come into force, I will bring an updated version of the charter for you. But I'm happy to take any questions on it. Do excuse me because I have got a very sore throat, so it's quite difficult to talk. But yes, happy to take any questions.
Okay, Councillor Tennent.
Does that include parish councils as well? Or are they exempt from this?
It would be their audit team who would be doing it, but yes, it's for public sector bodies. Yeah, internal audit. The IIA have actually updated the global standards. SITFA themselves are the ones who issue the public sector internal audit standards, and they're based on the global standards that the IIA have refreshed. SITFA have not actually published the new internal audit standards for the public sector, not yet, but they will. There's a holding notice on the website about it. But yes, in answer to your question, it's for public sector bodies. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this? We have to have it. It's seldom big questions on this. Actually, it's fairly straightforward. Could I have a proposal to note the report? Proposed Cllr Pretty, seconded Cllr Tennent. All in favour, noting the report. Thank you. And none against and no abstentions. Carried. Okay, we now move on to item 9, which is external audit update. Oh, beg your pardon. I forgot my glasses tonight. The internal audit strategic plan, item 8.
The internal audit strategic plan. We have reviewed all the auditable areas of the council, and councillors will note that the auditable areas of the council has expanded quite considerably, what with the One Heath and related subject matter. Excuse me. I've actually added 19 new auditable areas to the universe, which are all detailed in this report. A lot of them are to do with housing and the various aspects that will be coming into place. And we've taken out some auditable areas that are no longer applicable. So markets, allotments, resident permits, traffic management, authorised signatories, which is now covered by another audit. So we've done a complete comprehensive review of everything to do with the council and what would need auditing. So I have actually added 19. There are a few more that are bubbling away, so I may actually add them during the course of the year. But if I do, I will let you know. These new auditable areas then feed into. They're all risk assessed. Excuse me. They're risk assessed to see the highest priorities for the council. We then take it to, we have taken it to senior management and discussed it with them, because obviously it's their council, they know these areas best and they can highlight things that we perhaps don't know about until we go in and audit. And from that, we've come up with a 3-year audit plan. With the resources available to internal audit, we have, and the agreement of CLB, we constructed this 3-year plan. The key financial systems we are doing on a 3-year rolling basis. And all the other areas as they come in, you can see that the days that have been allocated to it. And yes, the plan is actually fluid and flexible. It is a 3-year plan, but saying that, obviously on a 12-month basis, I will review the next financial year to bring it completely up to date. So something may have happened in the meantime. We may have decided to go into shipbuilding or something, and that would then be included, and what high priority it is. So it's a fluid and flexible plan. Obviously, some areas will take precedent. Maybe we don't cut the grass for 6 months, and there's a reason. People want to know the reason why. CLB will make the recommendation that perhaps we ought to look at it. So it's a rolling programme of risk assessing constantly what's happening, it's all there, and I'm happy to take any questions. I do apologise for my throat.
Jim, Councillor Tidridge.
Feel bad asking questions and certainly having to respond.
Sorry, I have my trusty left hand here.
I'm very excited about the shipbuilding programme. I just really wanted to understand, has anything changed in this plan as a result of the external auditors report, which we saw?
We have actually, in the current plan at the moment, we've actually pulled forward some audits. The procurement audit, sorry, that Tom is actually undergoing at the moment. We've pulled that forward as a matter of urgency. In the first quarter of the new year, we've got accounts payable, the creditors to look at. There are others, Joe.
Sarah, Lisa and I sat down, we did and looked at the findings from the recent investigations, looked at the risk across the council, and that's been applied to the audit plan.
Yeah.
So as Lisa said, we pulled forward a few audits last year to review, and then I think accounts payable was due potentially next year. That one's now pulled forward to have a look at that in the first part of the next financial year. So yes, certainly has been reassessed, and as it would any year. As part of that risk assessment, you look at the whole control environment, what's happened during the year, what risks is the council now facing, and produce that plan to reflect.
The other thing we've done as well is with the investigations that we did, any findings from there were pulled forward. So if the finding found something in one particular area of accounts payable, we would then look to all the rest of the service to see if it's a widespread issue or if it was just concentrated on that one area that we picked up on in the investigation. So we would never just take a narrow view. Oh, we've done the investigation, that's fine, it's all gone. We would actually see if anything that I've found and recommended is across the estate, not just within the parameters of the investigation. And quite a bit of work has gone into that to ensure that we're covering everything.
Thank you. And the second question also links to the previous presentation on people strategy, which is, again, the EY report highlighted the strength of the internal audits in terms of bodies on the ground. Have we got enough bodies on the ground to be able to do this improved level of internal audit, this strengthened approach that you've described? Have you got enough resources to do, basically?
It's actually quite difficult to say at the moment because I have a member of my team who's semi-retired now. He's cut his hours. We had lost a senior post. There is actually a table in this report which shows the available audit days we had last year to the new financial year, and it gives the comparison which includes that new post. And although it doesn't look much different in terms of days, I think there's only about 10 days difference. We're actually intending to use that funding to buy in specialist audit resource where we can. So it may not be a vast amount of increased days, but it will be targeted and used to the best that we can.
Are you able to report back to this committee on how things pan out? Because it sounds like it's very much an evolving situation.
And say the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure all of us here would like to feel reassured that you're not stressing to try and achieve the plan we've got here.
Absolutely. I mean, in an ideal world, an absolutely ideal world, I'd have another 2 posts, but that's not going to happen. So it's quality of audit. I'm hoping we might at some point be able to take on another apprentice.
So we had council has already approved both 55 now, so for us to find some additional special resource and we're having discussions at the moment about the best way of delivering that. So there's certainly more resource coming through. Probably I just want opportunity probably to talk about, because I'm going to embarrass you now, Tom, But Tom is was appointed as an apprentice 2019.
Yeah, late
October.
2000.
Yeah. So he did a level 4 apprenticeship. He's progressed to do level 7, and by October will be a fully qualified chartered internal auditor. So he's now on a career development. So picking up your comment about pay and reward and all those things, he's now on a career development path that's got some certain milestones for him to achieve that sees him move up. So that's one of our really positive stories. So sorry, it's embarrassing.
No, yeah,
But
sorry.
I just think it's, having had the conversation about apprenticeships growing our own, we've got a
perfect example here, and
that's it.
he's a very valued member of the team. He really is. I'd be happy to take on more apprentices. Yeah, sorry, Tom. I do apologise.
Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, welcome, Tom. It's good to see you. It's very difficult, I know, to put a finger on exactly how it's going to be going forward, covering everything that you've got to do. But what we want to see is that extra funding is actually really going to make a difference and make your life easier and make it more effective. And hopefully over the coming months, that will be reported on and will be updated in the normal way in the quarters. And I think it's really important that we see that the value is there, because you know, we may have to go again for more funding. So you've got to be able to show where you've used it and how it's benefited the council. So it's a really important area of work.
I'd just like to say as well that senior management team have been great. Anything we want to see, we get to see. The doors are always open. Andy, we practically live with your team.
We're good friends.
But I really do appreciate it, because it's other authorities I've worked in have not been as open and transparent as.
In years gone by, I remember sitting with Joe in a meeting and discussing how we were going to. I mean, I'm talking that's 10 years ago, maybe. How we were going to find that extra help and how we were going to go to cabinet to ask for more money when cuts were being made elsewhere, and it's hard.
Yeah.
But clearly on this occasion we have to move forward with some support, and it's greatly appreciated.
It is. It is.
But we've got to value it.
And we don't give them an easy time of it.
No. But when other areas of the council are sort of being squeezed and we're getting more money, it's not as simple as that, is it? We all know that and we appreciate it. So yes, we very much like to monitor that closely if possible. I just actually wanted to make one observation, because you show in the tables how you measure the different high, medium and low risk. And underneath there's a statement that says these are considered every year to assess whether there's been movement. And I think that is really important. I don't know how you go about it. I don't know what criteria you put on that, but I know from experience many years ago that low risk issues can become medium risk issues, and they can eventually become high risk. So it's really important that although we may not be carrying out the audits very often, that they are reviewed every year to ensure that nothing has changed, because the world is a moving object. Things come up and surprise us, and we don't want to be caught out. So I was really pleased to see that. I'm not going to ask how you go about it. I'm just really pleased that that is done, because that's very important.
It's formally reviewed once a year, but every audit we do, we risk assess at the time. So as I say, we've swapped things around because some issues have cropped up, which weren't there when the plan was made. So it is a fluid document.
I know some low risk and medium risk items can become like sleeping giants.
Yeah.
Suddenly surprise you if you're not prepared. So it's really important that is there, and I was very pleased to see that paragraph there. Derek, did you wish to speak?
You mentioned you've had to add in, was it 19 new elements? Yeah. Looking at it, they seem to be all relating to housing and housing matters. Bearing in mind the immense value of the contracts, apart from what the fees, do you feel that 20 days is adequate audit time to allocate to that because they have package service? That's one point. And then you go on with the housing revenue account situation actually developing this year and next year. All these things are high value, potentially areas where things would go a little bit astray. And having been in construction, I know these things are happening. Are you able, can you confirm that you've got adequate capacity to cover all those points without detriment to your other activities?
We actually have an additional 20 days in there for contingency, for housing contingency, which can be used if something isn't covered within the 20 days of the contracts. I've also split out the contract because previously we were just doing the contracts in one, so it would be all of the contracts across the authority in one audit.
Yeah.
And now I've split it out. So we have the housing contracts, we have the and my brain's gone blank. We have the construction contracts.
Because I think they are quite complex. They're a large value, aren't they? So they're, I think the one we just try and contain that in one is.
That's what my concern was. They're very complicated, some of these arrangements.
They
and
are.
trying to make sure that you and your team have got adequate time.
Yeah. Yes.
Good. And that'll be and it will be picked up in the quarterly monitoring.
It will. And as I say, we can move things around. But I specifically wanted to split out the housing from the general construction contracts to any other contracts, just to make sure that I would give each area a specific amount of time without rushing it through as one audit.
And with regards to One Horton Heath, it's in there every year.
Yeah, I was sort of 20 days allocated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, the other thing I was just going to add is Lisa's obviously a member of the procurement executive group, so she obviously spend some time listening to the conversations that are going on as part of that group. So if anything's flagged there or an area that she considers, that's changing my assessment of the risk, will be listed in the plan.
And I would say, as with anything that's really difficult to read, flexible, can change at any time. If there are any issues outside the quarterly monitoring periods that you feel might be turning into something bigger, must tell us.
Yes.
Tell me, we can get a report done, look at it, because the longer you leave things when they do start to spiral, the faster they go.
Absolutely.
So we want to be on top of these things. And as an audit committee, we want to make sure that we're all working on the same thing. So please, if you're uncertain about anything and see anything that you feel is beginning to be a bigger problem, or it might be, whatever that might be, it's better to talk to us about it rather than sort of try and resolve it behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sofa. We live in difficult times, and it's important that we have those good communications, and that's a thing that tends to be going all the way through. Communication is important.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other comments on that? Can I have a proposal second? We can note the report and pick up on the things that have been said. Councillor Hadaway, Lee, thank you. Proposed and seconded. Councillor Tennent, all in favour? to carry. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to item 9, which is our external audit update report. And we have Gemma and Simon joining us. And please present your report.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, so this report, we felt, along with officers, it was really important to bring you a status report about where the audit for 21-22 is, what the change in the environment for local government audit looks like at the moment, and what the government propositions are at the moment, and how that would affect Eastleigh going forward through the period of 22-23 audit, but also then into 23-24, because we're coming to the end of that fiscal year as well. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of points that are in here, and then I think we're happy to have a discussion with you about it. So what the report sets out is that for the 21-22 financial statements audit, we are likely to disclaim that opinion under the new proposals that are coming out from government. So they are setting out some proposals to try and reduce the backlog of delayed audits that are prevalent across the country. And this would include the Eastleigh Borough Council 21-22 financial statements audit. Now, you'll be aware that that was underway, but that when we arrived at the point in terms of whistleblowers and the investigation that was undertaken, one of the points that we made in our report to the committee in January was that we weren't yet satisfied that sufficient work had been done to demonstrate that there wasn't a pervasive risk of fraud. Now, I'm trying to say that really clearly based on all of the discussion about communication, the need to make sure that the messages are really clear. We're not saying that there is a pervasive risk of fraud within the organisation, but what we are saying is not enough work has been done and demonstrated to us to be able to remove that risk of fraud across the organisation. And until that's done, it's very difficult for us, therefore, to determine where that might affect the financial statements and the extent of the work that we need to do. Now, that work is underway with internal audit, who are progressing a mapping exercise to demonstrate how they consider they have addressed that, but that has not yet been concluded. So as we report to you tonight, that is an issue that will, in all likelihood, delay the audit of 21-22 to the extent that we then run into the backstop disclaimer approach that is being proposed by government. What we are doing on 21-22 and for 22-23 clearly is making sure that our assurance that we provide to the organisation on value for money arrangements is up to date, because we see the value in that in terms of current assurance as to what the organisation is dealing with, how robust those arrangements are. Again, you'll be aware from our report that we brought last time in January 24 that we had identified weaknesses in those arrangements as a result of the work that we had done to date in a number of areas, and that was set out extensively in our previous report. So we anticipate that we will be reporting a value for money arrangements commentary that brings us up to date. That will in all likelihood come to your June or July meeting, which will then summarise our conclusions around those value for money arrangements. The report that's in front of you at the moment then talks about the impact of the government proposals on the 22-23 financial statements audit, and clearly that has not yet started and therefore would also be caught into the backlog arrangements that are being proposed by government, which is that they would be disclaimed by the backstop date of the 30th of September this year. Now, the proposals that government has put forward are designed to try and reset the delayed audit processes that are affecting local government. And we absolutely see the value in that, and therefore would propose that we move on swiftly to plan and undertake the 23-24 financial statements audit and value for money arrangements audit. And we would move to deliver that. And the rest of the report really sets out our initial risk assessment, where we see the risks for Eastleigh Borough Council for that year of reporting. We do comment on the need for appropriate staffing within the finance function, given the complexity of your organisation and your reporting requirements. And we also do focus on the responsibility of the authority to prepare those financial statements and then be able to support audit robustly as set out in the PSAA's terms of appointment. The other points in there are PSAA's initial indication of fees associated with the 23-24 audit and our proposed timeline to move to do that work. On the basis that we see great value in moving you back onto the regular reporting cycle, which actually fits better with the pressures on the finance function as well in terms of budgeting, reporting, preparation of financial statements, etc. The final point that I bring to your attention is on page 10, which sets out a point around independence. And you'll note that actually under independence requirements, I can serve a 5-year term as your engagement partner, and the financial year 22-23 brings me to my final year. However, we are in a position where we can ask for your approval and PSA's approval to extend that appointment by up to 2 years. And so I'm bringing to your attention that we would seek your approval to do that and PSA's approval to do that for an additional year, so that I can then transfer my responsibilities over to another partner during 23-24 and effect a smooth transition. So those are the points that I was going to bring to your attention from the report. More than happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Janet. And would that require, how would that be done? Would you write to us, or would you ask?
I'd ask the committee to consider it, and if you felt you needed more time to do so or more information, that's fine. More than happy, but we would like a formal response from the audit committee as those charged with governance as to whether or not you're comfortable to do that.
Okay, we haven't discussed it, so perhaps what we need to do is bring it to the next meeting. Is that too late? The next meeting would be June.
The issue that we have is that we need to start the 23-24 audit.
Officers were comfortable.
If officers are comfortable, so I'm quite happy to propose it from the chair tonight. Then, as it's in the report, so yeah. I did read it, but we hadn't discussed it, so I just didn't want to commit without speaking to officers. So, yeah. So actually, it makes sense because continuity is important, isn't it? So, are members happy with that particular proposal, that we support Janet continuing for a further year? I think you asked Janet, was it?
Yeah.
And can I have a proposal and seconder that we actually make that decision? Cllr Tennent, seconded Cllr Pretty, all in favour? Good. And against? Abstentions. So we can move on. So the continuity is in place. So that's helpful. Thank you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that
no, that's fine.
You were expecting a decision tonight or whatever. So you've cleared that up. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I did have some, but I think that little explanation clarified for me. So thank you very much.
Good. Any other questions? Yes, Joe.
Question. I just wanted to explain something. Sorry, Dan, you mentioned about the mapping exercise. Just to double check you're comfortable that has been sent across.
Yes, we've received that. Thank you. Yeah.
Double check that you have had that. I think it's kind of fair to say to committee after the last meeting, obviously, we gave our view of where we felt that sufficient work had been done. I think we're still working with external audit to give them that reassurance And there's a key piece of information that's been shared last week in terms of a mapping of assurance to show exactly what the team have done. And examples where Lisa mentioned tonight about we brought forward the review of procurement. So we've looked at that, considered the findings. So that's all been shared with EY. So yeah, so look forward to your feedback on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say something because I think it's important, because we are in a very unusual situation across the country with this. There is clear evidence available online that public sector, the public sector audit system is in a pretty poor state. I was looking this afternoon for information that backs that up. We've seen the press reports, and earlier I said that the press only are interested in the story, not necessarily in facts, but I picked this up from the public sector audit appointments, PSSA. A report indicated that only 1% of local government bodies received an auditor's opinion on their 2022-23 accounts by the publishing deadline, while new research indicated that only 5 out of 467 were able to do so. Earlier reports available online indicate that as many as 91% of that audits for 2020-21 were not completed by the due date. This has been going on for a long time, and it's been a real problem for both external audit and internal audit across the country. There are some councils that have still got outstanding audits going back 5 or 6 years to 2018. The information is out there. The figures alter slightly, but most of them back that up. A recent webinar session put on by CIPFRA and the PSSAA highlighted the issues and the extent of the problem nationwide, and the plans for dealing with them over the next few years. And the EY report very much falls in line with that approach adopted for dealing with the backlog. And we've heard that tonight, and EY are in that position, and we are in that position, like many, many other councils. If followed, it should take councils and external auditors forward over the next few years with the plan that's in place. However, the same session of that webinar highlighted a number of questions from attendees, and those questions are still outstanding, a lot of them, and they're very important questions. And I'm not going to go into detail. It's available from that webinar that I had access to. It is clear that there is still uncertainty on the battlefront as to exactly how we're going to go and take this forward, not just here, but across the country, across England. Doesn't affect Scotland, from what I understand. So those questions are something that I'm going to talk to Sarah about when she comes back, because it will help us move forward as well. But that webinar was very important because it was available to all local authorities, and it was very, very interesting. I actually want to say that as chair of A&R, I would like to have it recorded in the minutes that I have found the gradual failure of local government auditing in England over the last 5 to 6 years disturbing, frustrating and upsetting. I would like to thank our officers for their dedication and continued excellent work during that difficult time. And I know that the outside auditors have also been under a lot of pressure. As a committee, we find the independent opinion of the external auditor crucial to our assurance process. And we have to be disappointed that our 2021 and 22 and 22 and 23 accounts aren't going to be fully audited in the normal way. And we understand the reasons for it, even though a lot of our work was produced within the deadlines. We're in an unfortunate position, but it is nationwide, and we have to look after our own. And I think it has to be said that, you know, we have to move forward, but it is a serious matter. And it's fact. There's a lot of stuff out there that's misleading, but we have to deal with the facts and try and pull this together with EY, who are our external auditors, because they're getting similar pressures put on them. It has to be said, and we appreciate that. And I just wanted it recorded in the minutes, because I know our staff feel very similar way, that it is very difficult at the moment for audits and auditors in public governance. Okay, if we can do that. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Any comments on what I've just said? Because we appreciate that this is a partnership, but I think it just needed to be said. I've been a chairman for quite a long time, and I've seen this coming, and it seems that we're almost powerless to do anything about it. And government eventually has had to step in, as we knew they would have to. And we can't be certain yet whether it's actually going to work nationwide, but certainly we need to make it work here, and that's the important message. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Simon and Janet, for your attendance, and look forward to seeing you in June or possibly July if you get the reports sorted. And I also had confirmation from Andy that we're on schedule to produce the work required. Yep. So fingers crossed on that as well, which is good news to hear. I asked him this afternoon and he came back with an affirmative, so that's good. Okay, do we need to do any more voting on that? We don't. Good. Good. We then move on to the, I think it's the verbal updates. So we have one verbal update, which is from SRMG, which was yesterday. Could I ask you, Joe, to read it out for me? Because I haven't got my glasses and the writing is really small. Is that all right? Can I ask you to do that on this occasion? Normally I would read it out, but I got here and discovered that my glasses were 20 minutes away, and I've been fighting it, but
okay,
it's a lot to read out. Thank you.
That's fine. So meeting was yesterday, and the group had a look at the corporate risk register, as we usually do, and discuss the updates that have been made following the recent review by the Corporate Leadership Board. The group noted that the risk in relation to the 5-year housing supply not being maintained, as the council now has an adopted local plan, is no longer necessary for us to demonstrate that. So the risk isn't current, and we've agreed that that can be removed from the corporate risk register. We also noted that the score in relation to the risk around the council being unable to deliver services due to an increased pressure on staff, and it links into what we were talking earlier this evening about that pressure on staff and being unable to recruit to vacancies. So that score's been slightly changed and is now scoring 16 from memory. We had an update from 3 service areas on their operational risks, and that was the planning policy team, planning and environment directorate, and the corporate strategy team. So we had a look at their operational risks and asked questions around that. Lucy, our insurance officer, provided us a summary of the claims that we've had in 23-24 and compared that to 22-23. So that was really useful statistics, and we noted the increase in claims around combined liability and property, and a reduction in claims in relation to motor. I then asked for the two councillors present to give some feedback on the risk management training that you attended a few weeks back. So we had a discussion around that. It was felt that the training was useful, but more time could have been spent on the case studies where you went into the breakout rooms. I think that was a useful exercise, but it just felt that there wasn't enough time there. So I'm going to take that away. And it's also noted that it was a really important training, and the suggestion was that that's regular. So I'm going to take that away and feed that back to Laura.
I also said that maybe to try and do it face to face, because it was actually quite difficult going into those rooms, and we are in my group we only covered one of the options. We didn't do the other one, and it's much easier to discuss those sorts of things when you're play acting, when you're acting the role face to face rather than on Teams. It's quite difficult to organise as well.
And the last bit that I raised under AOB yesterday was following on from that training. Usually at this time of year, I'll be presenting the annual risk management report and the risk management framework. Because I want to reflect, Tom's done some good piece of audit work on it as well. I want to reflect on some things that Tom's suggesting and some things that came out of that training, and spend some time with CRB having a look at it. So my plan is that I bring that back to a future meeting, and I think we suggested July from memory because we need to make sure that the committee's made the appointments to those in June.
Yep.
So that's the plan there.
Good. I just wanted to say, I asked a question on the 5-year housing supply, because if you've been here as long as we have, Derek, then you would know that the 5-year housing supply is something that we quote to everybody. We have to, in planning, everything, we have to have a 5-year housing supply, and it has to be consistent throughout the borough plan, or the life of the borough plan, or the strategic plan. And I asked about the impact of not having that stock answer, if you like, available to us. And the fact is that a lot of the development in this plan was put at the front of the plan. It's very front heavy with development, and there will be a need to find alternative, further development later on in the plan, but the work is carrying on with that. But nevertheless, the 5-year housing supply would have slowed up anyway because everything was top heavy or front heavy. So in year 1 and 2, you might be building more houses than you need, but over a 10-year period, it evens out to being the right amount. What happens in year 10 to 15 is yet to be decided.
What is our housing 5-year plan? Is it up to required numbers, or?
It was, and now, but now it's not needed.
No, and I think it's all going to come out from this local plan review that's happening. So yeah. Graham was in attendance yesterday and he explained what they're doing at the moment. Cllr sites, I think it is. I'm not too familiar with it. Yeah, it's a Cllr site. They're doing a consultation. In relation to that, we did talk around ensuring that everybody was fully aware of what's happening with that local plan review and some comms plans. We did ask, didn't we, for the a risk to be added to his operational risk register around engagement with members of the public, and making them aware of what's happening and understanding what it means for the council.
Yeah, just a planning application just recently, and the suggestion was that we still were achieving the 5-year housing numbers, which gave us an opportunity to be more robust with our rejection on it.
I'm assuming because it's now coming off the risk register, it won't carry the same weight.
Yeah, no, I mean, Andrew Granfield's better placed to talk about it than I am. So
no planning officer here tonight. So
I think we need to ask this a question we can ask.
I can feed that back.
Yeah.
We've got a session on.
Because we use it a lot, don't we, in planning, so 5-year housing supply, either to refuse or to approve. So it would be interesting to know whether it's still relevant in that context. got to ask that yesterday. Should
Yeah,
have
no, that's
asked that.
fine. We've got corporate risk on our corporate leadership board agenda. I've got half an hour slot tomorrow, so I can raise that then and ask
Good.
feedback back.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? No? Okay. We propose that we note the report and look forward to that feedback. Cllr Tennent, seconded. Cllr Hadaway, all in favour of noting it, and no extensions, none against, so that's duly carried. Okay, we now move on to Cabinet Forward Plan. Is anything in there that hasn't already been picked up that members curious about or wish to know a little bit more about? Have to put it on our agenda? No. Okay. Item 12 is the A&R work programme. Now, I noticed that June didn't have the external auditors coming back. They've hinted in the report, it said June, but they qualified it by saying it could be June, it could be July when they were speaking. So I'm not sure yet, but it's going to be one or the other, I would guess.
Yeah.
Something else actually that also said that we'd probably come and look at, that we were discussing earlier.
So there'll be a One Horton Heath update.
Yeah.
My guess is because of the election and the pre-election period, there'll be an interim email update and then a more regular committee update going June or July.
Excellent. So that picks up your point.
Regular. That's what the value you get 7 months, get 7, you get 6 months later, or what I think regular possibly meant it's a bit more than that, but hey, that's your decision.
Well, I think were it not for the pre-election period, we would have had there would be ones earlier than June.
So that email update will be important.
I've got an action to go and talk to Sarah about it.
Yeah.
And the update is required.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Moving on to, we can just note that. Item 13, housing benefit subsidy. There is an appendix, which if you want to discuss anything on the appendix, we need to go into private session. So as long as you're happy with the appendix, I looked at it today and I couldn't see anything that I wanted to ask on it. So I'll leave that to members. But if you want to refer to the appendix, we'll have to go into closed session. So we'll deal with the main report first. I think Andy, you'll give this.
Me, not a lot to say on this one really. Kelly runs a tight ship with benefits, so no recommendations from the external auditors. Worth noting, this is his 4th year in the trot with no recommendations at all. So clean bill of health. Any questions, I guess, really?
Okay. I haven't got a question, but I would like to propose that we say thank you to the staff for all their hard work, because as you say, it's ongoing. And, to get a report where there's absolutely nothing from an auditor to pick up on, that is very rare, so we need to make the most of it. But yes, it is appreciated, all the work that they do in that very important area of the council's work. So please pass that back to them. Okay, members, we need to note the report. Can we have a proposal and second? Proposed Cllr Hadaway, seconded Cllr Tennent, all in favour? Against? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. Can I just ask if members want to raise any questions on the appendix? That's good, that's noted, and we don't have to go into private session. Thank you very much. That is the last meeting before the elections. And if you're standing, I wish you luck. And if you're retiring, we thank you for your services. If you're not coming back, and hopefully you'll all be back when we reconvene in the new term. I hope I will be. So we're waiting to see. You can never assume anything, but I'd like to thank everybody anyway for this year. It's been a tough year. We've got through it, and there's lots of work still to do. I'm quite happy to keep rolling up my sleeves and doing what we can to move forward. Thank you very much, and thank you, officers, for your attendance, your support. Close the meeting.